Hey everybody, hopping on here because CNN just corroborated my theory. I don't know if you heard, but in California, of all places, there's a landmark decision against social media giants Facebook and YouTube. And in an article that I just saw by CNN, they actually said that this landmark case sort of mirrors what happened with Big Tobacco. And if you watched our very first podcast, you would see that I opened that podcast by positing a theory, which is that smartphone technology are the cigarettes of our generation. You say, Misty, why do you say that? Well, if you grew up in the 70s and 80s like I did, there were pretty much people smoking everywhere. In fact, kind of like today, where there's a phone in every single person's hand, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a cigarette in almost every person's hand. Now, here's what's so crazy when you think about the way these things mirror each other. Technology now has sort of become so pervasive that we attach everything to being with our phones. Go to the bathroom, it's kind of gross, but you take your phone. Wake up in the morning, first thing that you grab, your phone. Last thing before you go to bed at night, you got to check the phone one last time. Whether it's just before dinner, just after dinner, during dinner, the phone. If you think about the way that cigarettes impacted a generation, same thing. Right before they went to bed, what did they need to do? Smoke one last cigarette. To go to the bathroom, what did they have to do? Smoke a cigarette. It was attached to every part of life. That's why I'm saying that smartphones to me kind of look like the cigarettes of our generation. So I just decided to do a little bit of research after CNN corroborated my theory. And here's what I found about big tobacco and big tech that is pretty shockingly the same. Number one, they are addicting you by design. So here's what we know about tobacco. People have been smoking peace pipes and things like that for decades and millennia, right? But it was only when it became something that they wanted to market to mass culture that they deliberately added additives that were addictive and that big tobacco knew were going to cause people to smoke more. And when you look at technology design, big tech has deliberately designed apps that are meant to capture your attention and keep your attention by feeding your brain dopamine, which makes you want to stay on a screen all the time. Same, right? Early awareness of harm. We now know that big tobacco knew that there were cancer-causing agents in cigarettes. They had that information. They choose to not disclose it to the public. Why? Money. Same with technology. Big tech knew that these platforms were bad for mental health, that they were causing all sorts of problems, especially for young people, but really for everyone. And they deliberately have buried this information. Why? Because of money. The Bible says it. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Let's go on. Both big tobacco and big tech have had a normalization in culture. If you grew up like me in the 80s, every movie, every actor was smoking. All the commercials, people were smoking. Everywhere you looked, it was kind of normalized to the point that it seemed like everyone was doing it. And if you were not, you were the exception, not the norm. Same with smartphones now. Part of the reason why I have so few people who are willing to even like or comment on these videos is because number one, we're watching these videos on our phones and that makes us feel hypocritical. But number two, it's so pervasive that there is a sense of, oh, because it's normal, it's healthy. I just want to say to you that smoking was normal when I was growing up, and now we know that it was not healthy. Same thing with the in your pocket technology. Just because it's normalized doesn't mean that it's good, and it's time for us to wake up. Next, there's it's harmless messaging. So when you look at Big Tobacco in the early days, they actually advertised cigarettes as safe or even healthy. You look at Big Tobacco advertising, it was always some guy who was like outdoors, like in nature, like with his horse, all of these scenes that make it look healthy. We know, of course, that it's not. Same with big tech. They're talking about the positive sides of it. Oh, it's connecting you to community. Is it really? Oh, it's connecting you to important resources and so on. Do you really need to have those resources in your pocket? All right, so there's this way of pushing it and marketing towards us that is like the benefit, when what they're doing is downplaying or even lying about the terrible side effects of having these technologies in your pocket. Next, with big tobacco and big tech, ubiquity and accessibility. So cigarettes were kept really cheap. They were available pretty much anywhere that you went, whether it's the convenience store, the gas station, Walmart, even vending machines in restaurants. Do you guys remember those? You could literally get cigarettes pretty much anywhere that you were. They deliberately made them widely available. Guess what? Same with technology. You'll see somebody who can't afford a bus ticket, but they have a phone. You'll see somebody who doesn't have the ability to pay rent for an apartment, but they've got a $1,000 device that they're walking around with. And so there is this way that they've created accessibility and this behavioral dependence, which makes people think like, oh my gosh, I cannot survive without a smart device. Now, speaking of behavioral dependence, in big tobacco, users felt craving and withdraw if they tried to stop. Same with technology. I don't know if you've ever done it, but you ought to just try to live a day without this device. I've done it. I've gone on like silent retreats where I literally just like put a phone in a drawer. And you guys, it takes days to detox from it. And so obviously what that means is that there are things that are driving us to compulsion, there are things that are actually bringing anxiety into our life if we don't have our phone with us. And there are things that are making us feel that if we're disconnected, we're going to miss something, and that's absolutely critical. And that's just built into the wiring of how these devices are made. I could go on and on and on, but the last one I'll mention is this: secondhand side effects. How many of you remember that one of the big things when they started really talking about the negative effects of smoking, they were talking about how the people around you were being exposed to secondhand smoke without their consent. So parents, I just want to talk to us because what's happening now worldwide is studies are coming out that are saying that children are literally dying because of our lack of willingness to admit the dangers of smart technology, specifically the dangers of allowing young people to have access to platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. We're talking about kids that are being trafficked, kids that are being murdered, kids that are committing suicide. And we as parents have to take responsibility for the fact that they are breathing our secondhand technology smoke. Because the adults that I see are addicted to these devices. They're literally on them all the time. And if we care about our children, I think it's actually time for us to have a realistic conversation about the fact that we can't expect our kids not to smoke if we're going to keep smoking. And so I've been waving this around, but I just want to mention to you that this is not a smartphone. This is actually a phone that looks like a smartphone, but it doesn't have any smart technology on it. Besides for things like a GPS, weather, clock, timer, things like that. And so I just encourage you, Jeremy and I have a whole podcast that's called To Smartphone or Not to Smartphone. I'd love for you to go over and take a listen to it because here's what I believe is coming. So let me be a little Pollyanna. There was a day and a time when the tide shifted with cigarettes, where there was enough communication from people that others trusted to say, hey, this is killing you. Hey, this isn't good for you. Hey, just because this is normal doesn't mean that we should continue doing it. And so my belief is that we are now in a moment where the tide is going to turn. where parents who have infants are going to actually say, hey, I'm not giving my child a phone. Where grandparents who have young babies in their lives now are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to subject them to this. And where people are going to begin to steward their relationship with technology. Now, let's do real talk. I'm not saying don't have a computer. I'm not saying don't have devices where you can search the internet and do research and all those things that you need. What I am advocating for is moving away from in your pocket technology that's with you all the time. Why? Because of all the things that I mentioned in this podcast. Okay? So think about it. Pray about it. Look around and actually analyze what's happened. Be honest about your own addiction to your device and ask yourself, do I want my children and my grandchildren to be as addicted to these devices? Am I? How much value is this device really adding to my life? And are there things that I can do to change my own relationship with technology so that I am a positive role model for what use of technology looks like to the generations that are coming after me? That's my last little thing. So I hope this was helpful. I did not expect to see CNN say that the case that just was won against social media was a landmark case like that of big tobacco. So I hope this is enlightening so that we can see, hey, just because it's normal doesn't mean it's right. Bye, guys.